Why are we talking about the game with the amputee anime girls? It's complicated. Visual novels are a niche genre. Maybe you've heard of critical darlings like 1000X Resist or 13 Sentinels. I only learned about those through word of mouth and extra nerdy video essays. There are plenty of brilliant VNs available, but you have to dig through the bookshelf to find them. Have any visual novels broken through and become mimetic enough that you'll run into them scrolling the English-speaking internet? Yeah, Doki Doki Literature Club. And before that, there was Hatoful Boyfriend, Dream Daddy, the KFC dating sim. The idea of the genre is a punchline. And what other genre has that? You don't see posts about Dive Kick without seeing any other fighting games. The reason the jokes get such traction is because you only have to look at them for a second to get what's going on. Anime girls gawping into the camera of your implied POV is ridiculous, and I don't blame anyone for finding that funny. I've been seeing this joke for 20 years. God, how is this not lost media yet? So, gamers have been roasting every aspect of this genre for cringe comedy, year in and year out. But now we have games playing it straight and winning Independent Games Fest awards. Surely there must have been some game that helped bridge this gap. One that was willing to play the embarrassing parts totally sincere and somehow drew people in. Visual novels were hugely popular in Japan for a decade, right around the time when English dubbed anime and games were booming. For several reasons, they didn't make it abroad. Not only did they have more text to translate than other media, they had a slow pace that producers feared wouldn't appeal to the young audience. Kids were the most lucrative demographic, but those kids soon grew up. If you've ever wondered why Toonami gets so many nostalgic love letters, it's because it was curated. 20 years worth of pop culture seemed to come out all at once. TV anime, feature films, RPGs, and manga fan translation sites all boomed simultaneously, and it only made you want more. By the late 2000s, those kids had grown into teens and were desperate for more of their favorite thing to address the pressing questions of self-image, mortality, and romance. But the industry hadn't caught up yet. Fan translators would piece together fragments of the newest things and share them on forums. It would be years until some of them crossed the border, and that forced us to use our imaginations. Well, not me. I have no imagination, so, I just read Love Hina again. But a few people did use their imaginations, which meant that they were prepared when the fateful image was posted. The sketch is raw, the scratchy line art and handwritten words giving it a feeling of intimacy, as though someone handed you their notebook. Their uniforms have a generically cute quality, while their eye lines and posing show a wide expressive range. Distracted, hurt, laughing, struggling to communicate. The character who takes up the most space breaks the fourth wall with her look. She stares into us with curiosity, leaning slightly back as if waiting to be entertained herself. In the year 2000, this artist was excited by the prospect of a genre he had witnessed the birth of only 5 years prior. Tokimeki Memorial and Angelique had birthed a new fandom overnight. Raita Honjo was just one of many artists dazzled by the possibilities. He would continue to sell his fan works at conventions until he got work as an illustrator and character designer in the games industry. His sketch would remain on a handful of bookshelves until someone scanned and uploaded it in 2007. This was just before social media and machine translation. English-speaking fans knew that Japanese people were like them, in theory, but they couldn't escape that feeling of untouchable distance that they got from their favorite things. This closed the gap, proved that their favorite artists started as hardworking amateurs, just like them. If they put in the work and wrote authentic stories from their own perspectives with the genre conventions they loved, they could give back to the scene that got them through hard times. And who wouldn't want to realize the potential of class representative type with big boobs? The point of view character is a man. It is his disembodied perspective through which we see all the women he is attracted to, and his narration comments on their bodies. His appearance, however, is much more vulnerable than some of the leading men who inspired him. Beloved hit visual novels like Fate's Stay Night arguably let their protagonists hide behind the camera while the girls pose for it disproportionately often. While Hisao Nakai does enjoy the power of looking, he's also depicted during intimate moments with that same soft, expressive delicacy as his partners. Demure-looking ass. There has always been a sharp division between romance for her and romance for him. Women have been sold books, from the days of Harlequin paperbacks to the modern book talk romantasy craze, while men's romance has evolved from 2D illustrations to whatever crimes against humanity AI is cranking out right now. Katawa Shoujo feels like it began in the latter category and gradually stretched itself out into a massive project that spans both. The most common reaction posted by fans over the years is how they were lured in by the audacity of the premise, only to cry their eyes out at the melodrama. And we should address the premise. There is nothing lost in translation here. The title means cripple girls. And, of course, that is supposed to be shocking. It's a statement about the stereotypes these characters live under. The story itself humanizes them beyond that label. The game does not fetishize the disabilities of its characters, but it absolutely does romanticize them. The game is more than happy to describe the delicate hands of a blind woman stroking the contours of your face, her sensitive touch, curious and without judgment, communicating a delicate empathy you've long yearned for. And as she takes your arm, trusting you to guide her safely forward, you realize that she sees you more clearly than anyone. Have I mentioned that this chick does everything with her feet? Yeah, she paints and uses tools with them. You might expect otherwise, but the game resists that, and that's its duality. It has the masculine framing of women as precious and vulnerable, but carried out in a different direction. So, who is the point of view character?
My heart! I loved her!
Anyone hating on romance fiction will probably complain that the main character is a bland non-entity. But that's the point. All the prose is focused on the object of desire, and having the protagonist take up more space just pulls the narrative in conflicting directions. Hisao Nakai is a young adult coming to terms with a traumatic injury and isolation in a hospital. Most narrative moments are followed by his inner monologue, where he gradually grows to appreciate people and learn to put himself out there. They call this a coming-of-age story. Inner monologue is the norm for them because they're about creating the self, aka the opposite of romance, which is about surrendering the self and embracing one's other half. So you can see how combining these two would make the prose drag. The first chapter is badly in need of editing, and that's another downside of the grassroots development style. No producer working on a real schedule would allow this. The upside is that Hisao's character does help bring out the the character of the girls. He bonds with Hanako and Lilly over their shared love of peace and quiet. He hits it off with Emmy, where his lack of concern for his own health leads them to share dangerous adventures. His ability to process complex tasks feeds Shizune's ego and makes them a power couple, while meeting Rin leads him down an existential crisis where he grapples with his lack of confidence. The Michelangelo effect is the idea that dating someone will change your personality, causing you to imitate the people you love. Part of the fun in replaying the game is seeing just how Hisao changes, with the consistent through line that he has to better himself to earn a real relationship by the end. And part of that dynamic character makes him feel gender fluid, like he is a man, and referred to as such in the text. The signifiers of the genre make it feel otherwise. Like, if you wanted to pitch a stereotypical chick book any time in the last 50 years, who would your main character be? Single woman, mousy hair, scared of love, desperately longs for it, always has her nose in a book, like your target audience. That's this guy to a T. Of course, men can have feelings. It's the combination of him being young, figuring out who he is, and the sentimental tone that give him this androgynous element. There's plenty of explicitly queer fiction in this genre made in the years since, and while those writers deserve the credit for their work, I can't help but suspect that some of their audiences were hungry for more after this game. And if you're interested in queer romance, it's the rest of this cast who will win you over. If we want to be scientific and weigh the text line by line, there is almost as much plot development about female friendships as there is het romance. He has to get with her friends if he wants to be, etc. These two seem like a motherly rich girl and her shy little ward until you hang out and realize that shy girl has plenty of skills and hobbies that rich girl gets to enjoy with her. Cute popular girl and the weird artsy friend immediately break their stereotypes because popular girl likes to joke around and weird girl gets along fine with her close friends. Then there's these two, and we'll get into that whole business later. Let's start with purple hair.
Damn, shit's purple.
Hanako is the type of character this game's branding leads you to expect. Shy, vulnerable, and with a visible disability that has everyone walking on eggshells. I'd recommend playing her storyline first, since hers is paced perfectly. You could read it in 2 evenings if it really drew you in. She's also a great showcase of the sprite animation. Seeing her peek around the edge of the frame and zoom away makes her feel unpredictable from the start. It's not really a spoiler to say that she hates being babied by everyone. What really makes her story work is seeing how she finds new ways to branch out and stand up for herself. They set up early that she's nervous in front of people, hates being the center of attention, and despite that, she enjoys a quiet moment looking at the clouds with her new guy, so much that she risks being late to class anyway. It's also established that she's made some comically bad food in the past, and she goes out on a limb and makes everybody lunch anyway. She's scrappy, and if any of that sounded adorable, you will simply die when she throws her tea party. She perseveres through her social anxiety, makes quality tea, serves everyone, and you would expect the scene to end there. She came out of her shell, and everyone patted her on the head for doing a good job. Then they sneak in one more twist. A few scenes ago, Hisao beat Hanako at chess, so he tries to be polite and tell her he had fun and wants to play again sometime. Then she hits him with the All the small moments stack up, and it's the story that I enjoyed the most on my replay. On the first playthrough, it's Hanako's friendship with Lilly that stands out. They both value formality, where the other girls will go out with Hisao spontaneously or invite him into their rooms just to hang. Lilly and Hanako take the time to learn his and each other's preferences so they can make the most out of special occasions. It's an old world charm that anyone can appreciate, but we gotta address the elephant in the room. They were literally roommates. In romance, all scenes have heightened emotion, which makes relationships, even outside the main pairing, feel romantic. Hence, shipping culture. These characters might not want to date each other, but our experience of them feels otherwise. Hanako lets her guard down with Lilly with such impossible tenderness that it starts to feel like a bit of a throuple. Even the last gameplay choice, the final boss of Hanako's route, hinges on this. Okay, spoilers for the next 10 seconds. Anyway, when Hisao has to decide how to handle the crisis at the climax of their romance, his final choice is one between his own impulses and Lily's advice. The correct answer is listening to her. Instead of a harem fantasy where both girls love Hisao, it's more of a bisexual otome fantasy where everybody loves Hanako. Her ownership of her own story really comes to the forefront in the last chapter, which should come with a content warning, because this deals with the relationship between physical trauma and intimacy. Skip ahead if you want to. Hanako consummates her relationship with Hisao not because the act itself is exciting to her, but because she wants to prove to him that she can handle it. It is an uncomfortable scene in an otherwise soft game. So, does this objectify a young woman's trauma just to stoke your sense of empathy? I would argue that the following scenes prove otherwise. Hanako takes a lot of time to herself, alone in her room. Hisao often interrupts this time to check up on her since he's understandably worried. It's another good use of the limited animation. At first, it seems adorable seeing her peek through this doorway under her bangs, but in the ending, the subtext sinks in. Even though Hisao was being a nice guy and offering help, politely leaving when she asked him to, he realizes how much energy it must have taken her just to open the door to him. The last scene is about reversing that balance of power. Instead of confronting her, Hisao sends her a message with no strings attached. Hanako takes him up on it, and when he admits that he's been afraid to admit his own fears and really get to know her, she appreciates the vulnerability. Even the illustrations paint the picture of her taking charge of her own life. She struggles, falls, gets back up, and in her final moment, she's the one taking the lead and winning true love as her reward. Demure looking ass. Pictures of Lily. I don't want to spoil the whole game, so I'm keeping this one short. Lily's dialogue is full of elegant politeness, which reads well. She's also rich and beautiful, usually an annoying combination, but here, perfectly balanced out by her routine of working hard to help out her fellow students. So the fantasy is that she's an uptown girl looking for a downtown man. The writing really sells how gracefully she moves and how every moment around her feels like being led in a ballroom dance. And her animation works just as well. Every character does the same dissolve between sprites, which works, but can look awkward between some of the more exaggerated poses. Every one of Lily's sprites is posed to ensure smooth tweening. All other characters have one silly or off-model expression for comedy moments, but not Lily. She's kind of like James Bond, rich, sexy, sees what she likes and takes it. And if anything becomes socially awkward, rest assured that she will smooth it out, looking effortless while she does so. And that's what makes one moment stick out as a highlight. Hisao and Lilly have a seemingly plain walk and talk scene, only for Lilly to suddenly trip and fall. It is the first time she has so much as flinched in 200 pages. And then she says a swear. In a game where each sprite is reused hundreds of times, Lily's angry sprite appears only in this one instant. It takes restraint as a writer to create that much setup, all for the sake of one payoff, but it totally blindsides you. Wait, no, don't say that. While a domineering woman and submissive guy is not inherently queer, their relationship is less about power dynamics than it is comfort and domesticity. She even whisks him away to a cottage in the countryside. It's less ara ara one-san than it is Carol aired. But if you want a straight take on the girl boss,
how to hit on the president with 100% success.
here we see slow burn enemies to lovers before it was cool. Shizune is the student government president, and she has a sidekick. Because Shizune is deaf, they communicate with sign language. Her bestie Misha acts as an interpreter. Shizune bullies you into doing manual labor while Misha provides zany comedy. Her arc is the one most badly in need of editing. Shizune signing and expressing herself physically is good characterization, but then everything she says has to be translated by Misha, then Hisao reacts, and these two are the ones providing exposition about how the setting works. During the first chapter, where every character is supposed to get equal screen time to introduce themselves, Shizune and Misha show up 6 different times. I got so sick of them that I never played Shizune's arc until I committed to this video. And that's a shame, because the arc itself has good ideas. Where the writing for Lilly characterized her as smooth and comforting in her physicality, Shizune is decisive, even violent. It makes her off-putting at first, but when she finally gets a chance to catch her breath and take a break, it's humanizing. Hisao gradually learning sign language makes him more endearing too. When you finally read her first line of dialogue that he understands, it's touching. A tighter script might start winding down to the conclusion after that, but the game has an idea it's really committed to. There's this whole B-plot about Shizune's rich family that tries and fails to be funny because the writers don't know enough about Japan to build up any detail. It's only here because they needed to stall for time until the plot twist. Spoilers again, you've been warned. Near the end, Misha becomes noticeably depressed, and the reason for this is that you stole her girl. In a single scene, she turns from fun comic relief into a fully realized character. She pulls the rug out from under you, thinking you were slick for learning sign language as a romantic gesture. She was on that before you even showed up. Her humor always seemed a little grating to the other characters, and now you realize it was a cope. She's the queen of just kidding. Unless. The fact that she persisted with such over-the-top energy is what saves her from being a token tragic gay. They make an effort to give her this heartwarming resolution where she applies herself and studies for her career. But I'm just like, there's 4 eligible ladies sitting around doing nothing in the plot right now. Let a girl rebound. My money's on Emmy. Every athlete needs a cheerleader. Sex is ridiculous, and You have to laugh about it sometimes or you'll go crazy, but it's hard for most media to depict that. This visual novel nails it, from the slapstick of Emmy's sprite toppling over and some illustrations that depict the more comical aspects of coupling. It explores the fun side of young love. Sweet, charming, and kinda stupid. It's a short and sweet story that I feel no need to pick apart. Emmy's relationship with her best friend is what moves her into interesting territory. Where the other duos are close friends, Emmy and Rin are more private individuals with different lifestyles. Emmy acts cute, wants people to like her, enjoys a group hangout. Rin is quiet, likes to mess with people's heads, and enjoys solitude. It's a cliche comedy dynamic for a reason. Her understatement and her goofiness make their funny scenes better than Shizune and Misha's, who both had oversized personalities. It's even Rin who helps Hisao fall in love with Emmy. Rin's dialogue helps romanticize the visual of Emmy doing what she does best, and they end up together soon after. Then, many scenes later, after they hook up for the first time, Rin barges in on them without batting an eye. It's comic relief, but also helps the two of them stop being so serious and get closer to forming a real connection. Emmy's a good character, but as you can probably tell, I saved my favorite character for last.
Foot dive!
Rin is a bit of a manic pixie dream girl, but she also says the things we're all thinking. If it's not a dry observation about the way of the world, it's a sexually charged remark about girls out of nowhere. It makes the writing feel a little immature, like, haha, this girl talks like a horny dude. But that's also very real. When young women get sick of being talked down to by guys, sometimes they engage in a little ironic misogynist humor. Rin is extremely queer-coded in a way that keeps you guessing. Like when Hisao stands above her, she teases him about being able to see up his skirt if he were a girl. His immediate reaction is to go along with it. Need to talk, buddy? She even gets a scene with the comic relief guy, since he is visually impaired and she wears the boy's uniform. He just assumes she's a dude, and again, Hisao rolls with it. When she draws him, like one of her French girls, he gets jealous of her ability, and there's an undercurrent of envy throughout his character arc in this one. It's not that he envies her craft, but her independence. One of the most surprising dialogue choices even happens when Hisao tries to think his way out of his melancholy and wonders if he should try to be more like Rin or like Emmy. And there's no right or wrong answer to this question as far as progressing the story goes. In fact, Rin has the most complex dialogue choices in the game. It's mechanics' metaphor, making you feel how overwhelmed and confused his feelings make him. And I don't know, but my straight friends are never confused about their feelings. Annoyed, ashamed, maybe, but never confused. I haven't talked much about the dialogue system because it's simple and effective. Important character beats give you a little choice to relay the gravity of the situation. Rin's dialogue system has noticeably more branches because she leaves Hisao hanging. This is truly what dating avoidant people feels like. Every choice caps off a scene that drills deep into the characters. What saves Rin from being a bad manic pixie dream girl is that anytime she gets too deep into teenage philosophizing, she'll cut right through it with a deadpan conclusion. Her work and relationships fulfill her, and the back half of her story gives us a painful look into the transition where she tries to turn her passion into a job. Meanwhile, Hisao forms a perfect counterpart. He is good at solving practical problems, but has totally compartmentalized his grief and self-image. This sets up a scene where he asks Rin about the way people treat them. He's really asking for validation that the both of them are freaks. Rin sees right through his posturing, but instead of dryly calling him out as she has done so far, she shows him an unconditional gesture of affection. The game saves the sincerity and emotionality for the right moment, and that's what makes it work. It's the kind of scene that a lot of games would shy away from because if it doesn't work, it's cringe. In my opinion, it works more often than it doesn't. One of Katawa Shoujo's artists, Raide, went on to collaborate with another writer on several more romantic visual novels. Christine Love, a pioneer of the genre whose work was winning critical praise before KS released, did some of her best work so far with Raide, who sadly passed away much too young in 2020. In a thread discussing his passing, I saw quite a few comments having the same debate I have, trying to determine just how influential the game was. It's hard to determine because even during the 5 years of its development, the fandom changed. More fans had grown up, localization expanded, and big anime adaptations of VNs like Steins Gate and more popularized the genre internationally. Just a few months after Katawa Shoujo released, I saw an advertisement for one of Christine Love's games on the front page of Steam, back when one indie game could occupy the front page of Steam. That was the game that got me hooked. It wasn't until a year or two later, right after graduating high school, that I played Katawa Shoujo. The post-graduation summer can be a notorious existential slump for many, and I'm not the only person Katawa Shoujo helped. Some media is best experienced as a young adult, but if you're older, I believe you could enjoy it if you're in the mood for something extremely earnest. There's much more to be said about how the genre has grown in the years since, so if you'd like to talk about that more, stick around. Click some of the links below if you'd like to support the channel, and as always, thank you for your continued support.